Welcome to the updated controller settings guide for Season 28 of Apex Legends. Now this season brought a ton of new stuff to the settings, so do not skip a minute of this because there's a lot of important details that you do not want to miss. This video was made possible due to EA and Respawn, so huge thank you to them as well. Here's a little sneak peek for you guys. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, so let's get started. Going to your settings guide, we're going to start off in gameplay. Now, incoming damage feedback, set that to 3D. Crosshair damage feedback, set that to off. Damage numbers, set that to stacking. The reason why you don't want this to have it on floating is because you're just going to get a bunch of numbers to the left-hand side of your screen, but you don't know exactly how much damage you've done. I mean, if you're really great at math, you can add all that up, but you don't know how much damage you have done. If you change this to stacking, it adds it up for you. You see that? So it makes it a lot easier to kind of calm to your teammates that, hey, I did 39 damage and he's flesh. Or, you know, if right there, 104 damage. And so you can, you know, appropriately communicate this to your teammate of exactly how much damage you've done so that they know if it's safe to push or if it's safe to kind of back up if the teammate's still kind of full. So that's the most important part for the combat. The reticle, I kind of just kept that in the red. You can customize that to kind of whichever one you'd like. But in general, in most maps, as you can tell, red is probably the most important thing for your reticle, because if you change this to something like green, then it blends in a little too much. Certain areas, it makes it easier to see, but as you can tell, there's a lot of greenery, especially in, you know, most maps. It even blends in with the blue. So I would recommend, you know, going off with the original, the red. There's some certain colors like pink kind of is perfect for everywhere, but for me, I feel like the red kind of works out for me the most. Same thing exactly with the laser sight. You know, I recommend just sticking with the original. But if, like I said, if you have a color preference, then go with that. But going with the red kind of never hurts. So the enemy health bar, I keep that on enabled, especially since they added that recently. So you can see the enemy health bar. It just makes it where it's a lot easier to see exactly how much health they have. So I mean, that's free information that you're leaving off the table if you leave that off. So keep that on, you know, enabled. Enemy highlight, keep that enabled as well. Like I said, it kind of highlights enemies for you. The weapon auto cycle and empty, now keep this on. For a while I had it on off, but I realized this doesn't mean, you know, if your mag is empty. I used to think like if you empty your mag, it'll automatically swap. No, that means if you run out of ammo completely, it'll swap. So I mean, like, let me show you what it looks like. So if I'm gonna put this on infinite ammo reload to turn off, watch this. It'll swap to the PK right away. So that's not bad. You know, if you're in game, you might not think about like you run out of ammo last second. And it just helps out. That little quality of life definitely helps out. Also, here's a real cool trick. If you're in the firing range, go to customize range, infinite ammo reloads, turn that on, and now you have infinite ammo. You do not have to actually pick up any of these anymore. So really cool trick. Now, taking damage closes death box or crafting menu. Keep that off. Most people don't realize, but they actually have this on. This means that if you're taking any type of damage, or if you're crafting something, you know, like a replicator, and you start to take damage, if you have this on, you'll get kicked out. Like, for example, I'll throw a grenade right here. Let me take active damage. Let's say you knock someone, right? And you try to swap with their death box, but you're taking damage, you're going to get kicked out. Now you can never swap. Or if you're taking damage from the ring as well, you can never craft someone like a banner or something. So this is literally really important, because, you know, getting that shield swap in the middle of a fight, even if you're taking damage, you want to be able to actually shield swap. Now, if someone damages you, you can't shield swap, and bam, you're dead. So this is a setting you wanna keep off, you know, 100% of the time. All right. So now for movement, always sprint. I like to keep that on. Okay, this helps with the movement techniques. You know, it prevents you from dead sliding, so I would recommend just keeping this on most times. And then this kind of hides the sprint control, because you don't really have to press this at all, because it always sprints for you. Auto run, I keep that on off. Jetpack glide control. Now, if you play Valkyrie specifically, hold is the best thing that you can have. Toggle, not so much. The reason why hold is because you just hold your jetpack, so that way you can hover and then you let go. You don't have to toggle it to kind of activate it. This is like an extra step that you don't need. Hold is the better option. And if you are interested in mastering Valkyrie, I do have a guide to my channel that I just released recently. So it's a very up-to-date Valkyrie guide for those of you who want to watch that. Mantle boost activation. Now I keep this to jump, and then mantle boost UI, I keep that to off. This makes things very simple. So that way, when you mantle boost, it just is, it's the free super glide that they introduced back in season 27. Yeah, right. If you're still learning the mantle jump, it's fine. Go ahead and put that to full. So you see the actual UI where it tells you when to boost. But once you get the timing down, you don't really need that notification anymore. You know, it'll be almost ingrained of when you should be, you know, mantle boosting / super gliding. And it's at the very end of your climb, and it's that free movement technique, like I said, that just makes the game just much more, you know, flowy. Like you just move around much faster this way. But go ahead and keep that to, you know, off. You can even keep it to minimal to make it just where you have the circle. But like I said, you know, if you've played season 27 well enough, you don't really need to keep that. So it just declutters your screen. And actually, if you record clips, it makes it seem a lot smoother, and you'll feel the movement if you get it, and if you don't. So keep that to off. Now, interact prompt style. I recommend keeping this actually on compact. I don't know why it was set to default, because default shows everything. Like you see that big square box where it says medkit heals 100% of health, 8 seconds use time. There could be a guy behind that, you know, that rectangle, that blue rectangle. There could be a guy popping up this corner, and you will not see him. He could literally be right here, because, you know, all the UI in this game, it shows exactly, it explains everything, which is great for beginners, right? Keep this on if you're just starting the game, so you understand what, you know, all these little things do, what armor this is, you know, what amp this is. So these are really, really important if you're just starting the game. But if you've played for a while, keeping it compact, let's say that guy's behind there, you don't need to know what a medkit does. You already know, you've learned. So that just makes it a lot easier when you're looting around the map, so you don't see a ton of stuff in your screen. So I would recommend keeping that in compact if you've already, you know, mastered the different things of this game. But if you're still learning, default is a great way to kind of still learn about things. Tutorial systems, I just keep that to on, but most likely, like I said, it's the same thing as here. If you kind of know everything, go ahead and turn that off. Button hints, I recommend keeping that to on. Health and ammo pop-ups, I keep that to off. Pop-up, I keep that on. Obituaries on, minimap rotation off, arsenals, map, and HUD icons maximum. This is very important because it just shows you as many arsenals in the map. I mean, you kind of want to know, you know, exactly where, you know, where the light ammos are, and, you know, if you're running sniper, you know where to get your attachments. So it doesn't make sense to keep this off minimal. Keeping it on maximum is your best friend there. So now ping opacity, I would keep that to default. Off-screen portraits on. Performance display on. This is really important if you're playing, you know, on the PC, so you see how many frames you have in the top right, how much your ping is, so that way you know if a server is having any problems. And it's a quality of life thing that I recently realized. It just makes things a lot smoother, so I can just monitor how my game's actually going. So colorblind mode, I keep that to off. This is a personal preference, of course. You can there's a lot of different settings here that, you know, if it makes you see things a little bit easier if you have, you know, colorblind, or even if you don't. I know a lot of people prefer just seeing things in a different color, but I like to keep mine on off. Health and ammo voice lines, I keep it to off. You know, before this was on all the time, and it was really annoying because, you know when to heal, guys. Like you're always looking at your HP bar, especially in this game. So you know healing is your best friend in this game. So it just doesn't make sense for the game to keep reminding you to do it, unless you really feel like you need to be reminded. Then of course keep that on. But, you know, most times it's not necessary because you're always looking at your health. Subtitles, I keep that to off. Subtitle size to normal. Enable access chat features, I keep that to off. Convert incoming voice to text chat, I keep that to off. Play incoming text chat as speech, I keep that to off. Communication filter to everybody, streamer mode off, anonymous mode disabled, and usage sharing enabled. So that's going to be for the gameplay settings. So moving on to controller settings, for the button layout, I actually just keep this at default. Now I use a paddle controller, which means it has buttons in the back of the controller, the sides of it, so it gives me a little bit more of an advantage. So, you know, maybe default might not be the right move for you. Let's say you use a regular controller, and I would recommend trying to check out, you know, some of these different ones. And I have heard that some of these different settings are great for, you know, players who don't use any paddles control, like a regular controller. But for me, default works for me. You can even customize your own settings if you want here, just to make it a lot easier for you. But like I said, default works for me. At the end of this video, before I finish it, I'm going to go ahead and show you all the different binds I have and the recommendations for the different controllers that you guys should get. But before we do that, let's just go to the actual controller settings first. The stick layout is going to be default. Interact reload button, it's going to be tap to use and reload. The crouch button is going to be set to toggle. and then the aim button is going to be set to hold. Okay, survival slot button, keep that to off. Okay, actually this is very, very debatable, because having this on is actually a great thing, because if, you know, like, let's just say you have an evac tower, right? You grab one, you can actually just hold, you know, the left button there, and you pop your evac tower. See the bottom right of my screen? You could just hold this, bam, I have my evac tower. That's really easy, right? If you're in the middle of a game, you might need that. We don't have heat shield, so it's not as important, you know, but for me, I like to keep that to off for personal preferences, because if you don't have, you know, you actually now have to go to your backpack if you want to do this, if you have it off. See that? It's one extra step. You're like, Sonyx, why go the extra mile when you can just keep that to on, right? You don't have to go to your backpack now to grab this. Well, this new button actually just is now bounded to an inspect. Now I can use that as an inspect button, which I love doing, you know, but that's so cool. That is it's such a cool animation. This is the mythic PK skin for this season, for the reactive PK skin. Really, really cool. And then, like I said, if you have an heirloom, for example, you know, you can just use it to inspect it, and if you're running across the map, so it just makes it easier for me to inspect without actually having to, like, let's say if you have kunai, like wraiths, and you could just spin it like this. So I mean, it's a lot easier for me to do that, because I'm on controller, right? Mouse and keyboard has access to different binds that they can use, but unfortunately for controller, we're very limited. So I'd like to keep that to off. But like I said, personal preference of what you prefer for that. Adaptive triggers, I'd like to keep that on off. Trigger dead zones to default. So menu cursor speed, this is very, very important. Okay, see the speed at which I move my cursor with a controller? Looks great, right? Just the right amount. If you have this too low, look at that. It's like a snail. And then if you have it fast, it's way, way too fast. So what I recommend is to keep it kind of here, because if you have it too low, look at me trying to grab the armor swap. Like, let's say there's an armor in here. I cannot grab it in time. Let's say the grenade is the armor, right? It's way too slow. But if you have this at max, you're gonna miss the armor swap. See that? Unless you have perfect precision, which, you know, most people don't, and then you're gonna end up grabbing a mag instead of the armor, and then now you die. So having it somewhere like right here, you see this? See the default? See how it has this orange line here? I like to form a letter T here almost, like somewhere around here, like the 30 to 40% mark, maybe 35%, and this is just right for me. See that? It's just enough speed where I can still grab the armor if it's there, but not too fast where I'm gonna miss it, or too slow either. So, you know, experiment with your own personal preference for this, but for me, I recommend just starting here as your baseline and then going from there. Now we're moving on to movement and aiming. I know this is a part that you guys are really excited for. A look sensitivity, I like to keep that at 4, and a look sensitivity ADS, I like to keep that at 3. Now last season, I recommended 4 too, which is great because the look sensitivity is a little bit slower now. It's half the speed from when you're non-ADS. See how slow that is? It's very, very, very slow. But let me show you the recoil control for this. I mean, this you will never miss. If you have 4-2, it makes your weapon like a laser beam, because your weapon does not move as much when you're ADS. So everything is under control with this. Like it's literally a laser beam, right? The only problem with this is that it's hard to flick between targets when you're ADS. Obviously you can un-ADS, so you know you could like I said, you could practice un-ADSing, re-ADSing, which is great, you know, in its own right. But it's a lot slower than I would personally like in most games. I still turn on 4-2 linear if I'm feeling like my aim isn't all there. I'd rather sacrifice a little bit of movement so I can get a little bit more accuracy. So I will turn 4-2 linear on sometimes. But for most games, I like to actually run 4 for the look, and then your look sensitivity for your ADS is going to be 3. Now the reason why I like to do this is because you're going to have a little bit less recoil control. See how my crosshair is kind of coming up? It's still pretty solid. It's not going to be as tight as the other one, but I just have to practice recoil control now. You know, that's something that I gotta do personally. But look how much faster if I was to flick to targets. You know, so it's a little bit it's a lot faster for sure. Just a little bit less recoil control, but that's something that you can actually control yourself. You can practice that in the range, right? You're not limited to how fast this goes now. So I would recommend, like I said, keeping this at 4.3, but if you need a little bit more recoil control, keep this at 4.2. You have two great options here. I know some people play on 4.4, and that's great, but now you basically have no difference when you're ADS and when you're not. So this is a great option as well for people who can truly control recoil control even at longer ranges. But look what happens. You start to sacrifice. It's harder to control recoil a little bit because every move that you take, you know, every micro move you make, it's gonna move it really like a lot. So, you know, 4.3, 4.2, you have a lot of leeway to work there. So try it out. Try both settings out. You never know what's going to be your preference until you actually try this. For optic settings, I like to keep it. This is the same as earlier, 4.3, but I like to keep this per optic ADS settings to off. You know, if I turn this on, I don't like changing all these different settings here. I like to keep this off. It keeps everything just identical to what you already have, so you don't have to actually worry about, like, if you have a 3x scope, right? Let's just say we have like an R3, right? You don't have to worry, or a 2-4. You don't have to. It's still the same amount of kind of settings as 4.3. You don't have to actually worry about changing any of these. However, if you feel like we have an 8 scope or a 10 scope or 3x, like if you want to make that a little bit faster, then of course you can change it, or slower. But I like to keep mine on off. It just makes things a lot easier for me. So, you know, keep that there. Now we have the response curve. This is very, very important, okay? Set this to linear, okay? If you have this anywhere else, linear is going to be your best friend. There's a debate between what's better, classic or linear. Now I'll show you. Linear is kind of like from that point to that point. You see that straight line? That's a linear curve. It goes, there's no smaller point or larger point. It's a straight curve, meaning that if I move my stick, it just moves in the direction that I want it to at an even rate. There's no delay. There's no speeding up, slowing down at a certain point. So the game will just take everything that I give it raw, and it'll just translate it into the game exactly as it is. So it prevents anything from it prevents your aim from micro adjusting as well. So if you have this on classic, or steady, or fine aim, or high velocity, these change the actual pattern of your aim. So now it either slows down and then speeds up, or speeds up or it slows down. So then you kind of have to adjust for that, which is great for some people, but for most people, you just want it to be completely what you tell your controller to do is what's going to show in the game. Like, you don't have to do anything else except move your cursor. I mean, move your stick to the exact place that you want it to be. So I mean, that's the main thing. 4.3 linear, you've seen this in a lot of different settings out there. There's a reason why this is powerful. You can start off here as your baseline. If this doesn't work for you, then of course you can always tweak and change this accordingly. So start here. This is a very, 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 very important settings, and this is the reason why it still exists. Now for look dead zone, I recommend keeping that to none. Right? Do not change that to small or large unless you need it. Even on the right hand side there, it says increase only if needed. A small dead zone allows for better aim control. The reason for dead zone, it's because it recognizes how much movement do you need to make in order for your controller to actually move. So if you have this to none, I'm going to move my controller a little bit, like my stick a little bit, it'll still move. See that? Or if I need to micro adjust, it'll still move. As much as I want it to move, it'll move. It'll stop when I want it to stop. It'll move when I want it to move. If I even do micro adjustments, it'll still move as well. If you have this to small, that means, or large, it means you need a larger movement on your controller or your sticks for it to recognize that you actually have to move. So that's not great when you want to do micro adjustments, right? If you need to like do small, finer adjustments for players that you can't really see, because you won't be able to make those changes anymore. So if you do have stick drift though, you do not want, the sway, you don't want any of that stuff to happen. So then that's when you would consider having this to small or large. Right? If there's large is if you really have bad stick drift, because now it won't drift because the game is not recognizing those small adjustments in the stick moving, and it won't move your character for you. But then if small is just a little bit of a bad drift, no, not too bad. But if you don't have any drift at all, if you have a pretty decent controller, keep your look dead zone on none. This keeps your aim just locked in, and it just makes everything a lot smoother than than you would expect. And for those of you who play on the PC, you can actually change your dead zone in Steam itself. I just learned that very recently, and if you actually have this set to none, you could still have dead zone in your actual controller in the Steam. So I would recommend putting that to as low as you possibly can to kind of mimic none as well. So this could be set to none, and then your controller dead zone could be set to really a high number, and you basically negate this change here. So I would recommend checking your settings guide for your Steam for that one. Okay, so I would just recommend keeping 4 and then 3 or 2 and then linear. So this is very, very important. If you want to screenshot this, tape this to your wall, this is going to be your bread and butter right here for getting god tier aim in Apex. Now movement dead zone, same thing. Keep that to small. Like I said, it increase only if needed. So if you don't have any drift, you don't really need to keep that at large. Keep that at small. Inverted look, I like to keep that at off. Vibration, I actually like to keep that to default or advanced. I don't have a PS5 controller, so it doesn't really matter, but I still get a little bit of vibration in my controller. Very minimal though. I have a scuff controller, so I will show you guys, like I said, all the settings at the very end of exactly all the different binds and different things that you want to have. But actually for me, I can control how much vibration my controller gets, and I keep it at a very, very minimal where I can still feel it, but I don't. It doesn't necessarily affect my aim. If you have a regular controller, then if you have it at default, it's gonna vibrate your controller a lot, and that actually is gonna throw off your aim. At that point, I would recommend keeping that at off, because you wouldn't feel the vibration at all. Like the game, it does those little that shake when you shoot. Actually can throw off your aim a lot. So I would recommend keeping this at off if you can't change how much vibration you have. But if you can, I like keeping this to default or kind of just on, because I like to feel, like I'm still kind of immersed in the game. And if you like I said, like if you get shot at or if you get burned, like you can feel, you could it's almost like kinetic learning or kinetic like adaptability. Like I can adapt to certain situations. Like let's just say I don't catch that in time, but I can feel my controller move. At least I know it can get out of danger. Or movement techniques, it allows me to feel exactly when to mantle boost, and if I do certain things correctly, like wall jumps and all that. So it's kind of like an all of the above, which it just makes the game more immersive for me as well. So I keep that on default. But like I said, if you can't control how much vibration you get, and you could feel like it's a lot, keep that at off. You're going to notice how much better your aim actually is. It's a cool little trick that most people, most players don't know, because that little feedback that you get when you get a controller vibrate will throw off your aim. I will tell you that right now. So keep that at off or default. Advanced look controls, this is very important. This is ALCs. Now you can control your aim even more precisely with this. I don't like to mess with this because I've tried it before, ALCs, and for me personally, my aim is just great at 4.3 or 4.2, right? You can always, there's an actually sweet spot where you can get like 4.2.5. So you could get something between 4.2 and 4.3. But that's something that you can find that on other videos out there. But for me, I like to keep things simple, and I like to keep that on 4.3. The only thing that you need to do in this page is to set everything to the left hand side, right? Outer threshold can't go down to 0. It's max at 1. But I would recommend keeping this all at 0, because what happens is if you have some stuff changed in here, and even if you turn this off, it'll actually skew your aim. Like your aim will get affected. It's called ALC bleed over. Advanced look control bleed over. Some of this stuff will bleed over to your actual stuff. So even if you have this off, it'll still bleed over here. So I would recommend keeping this to 0, so it doesn't actually, none of this stuff will affect your actual aim at 4.3. So yeah, keep this. Go ahead and keep this off. The only thing that you should be concerned about is the target compensation. Make sure this is set to on. Right, this is your aim assist. Basically, this is the one superpower that you have as a controller, right? You can't top strafe, you can't loot death boxes while moving. There's a lot of stuff that you can't do on controller, which is difficult if you play on a PC. So keep that on. You know, if you have this off, obviously when you aim, you see how I'm not getting any aim assist at all. It's not moving my character to actually track that guy. It's going to make it really, really difficult for you to actually be able to hit your shots at close range. The aim assist helps a lot, but weirdly. So keep this to on, and look what happens to your aim now. See how it naturally shifts to that character, even when you ADS. I'm literally, like, if you look at my sticks here on the right, I'm not moving that right hand side. It's doing it for me. So that's your aim assist. Keep this thing on. Okay, melee target compensation, I'd like to keep that on as well. All right, so go ahead and turn that off. So it doesn't say ALCs here. This is your regular binds, and you should be good to go. Those are the settings that you want to have for controller. Now, there are 3 main controllers that I would recommend for you guys. If you guys want to go all out, and if you play on the PC or if you play on Xbox, I would recommend going with a Scuf Envision Pro V2. I will link this in this video as well as the description down below, so you can get your own controller. But I want to show you how powerful this really is. Right in the back here, you have 4 paddles. So I bounded mine to my keyboard to letter Y and letter T, and you're like, wait, what is that for? This is push to talk, right? I keep mine on T for push to talk on Discord, and then Y push to talk on the game itself, right? So I can push to talk to my teammates or randoms as needed. And in the bottom here, this is very important. I bounded my bottom right paddle to B, which is going to be your crouch and Apex. Like I said, this matches all the default settings that we described earlier. And then for A, for my bottom left paddle, I like to keep that on jump. This is A is going to be jump, right? This is going to make it a lot easier because you never have to let go of these sticks ever again. So, because if you need to jump here, the previous way you'd have to let go of your moving button, and then now you have to actually let go and do one of these, and then now you'll die because now you don't have movement. But now you can have way more fluidity by having this set to these binds here. Okay, so if you want to copy these settings, go ahead and use this video. This is really cool. On the top right paddle, there's a paddle here in the top right of the controller as well. Not up here, but literally here on the top right hand side. I would put this to here, and it matches the top arrow in this top arrow spot. This is going to be your healing button. Okay, this is gonna be your heal wheel, right? You don't have to let go of this stick now in order to heal. You can just tap this now with your pointer finger, and then bam, you'll start to heal right away. This bottom button here, match this to the top left hand side. You can match this to the bottom arrow, and this is for your perk upgrades. So this is very important. So you never, like I said, you never have to worry about touching that arrow ever again with this with your thumb. So you're good to go. These bottom buttons here are all, you can even bind this to other stuff in the game if you want to. But for me, I like to keep this kind of quality of life stuff. Muting the microphone. These are all OBS stuff, so I can like clip my game and all that. So I never really have to touch my keyboard ever. Like, this is really powerful stuff. Like, if you're on OBS, if you're recording gameplay, you can actually bind your replay buffer, which clips the last 60 seconds of your gameplay, and then bind it to one of these. So imagine how powerful that is. You don't even need a stream deck. You can use your controller as your stream deck, which is why I recommend this controller, the Scuf Envision Pro V2, as one of the best controllers that you can use for Apex and just content creation in general, right? You don't need to go overboard if you're just playing Apex. Like, you don't need to have all these here. Also, one really thing that I want to show you guys, if you go to your thumbsticks, this is exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? The dead zone. Because if you have your dead zone set to here, you can actually change how low and how high you want it, right? I would recommend, I've tested this out multiple times. Keep this at 3%, the minimum dead zone. All right, and then for both sticks. What I noticed is that if you have this set to 3%, if you have to set to 4%, now you're going a little bit further out. You're not lowering the dead zone as much as you want. But then if you have this at 2%, it's too little that it'll actually start to have stick drift itself. And I noticed that even in a brand new controller, right? Having this at 2% or 1% or even 0, it's not really all that great. Now you'll have drift, which is going to affect your aim in a different way. So having this at 3% is a sweet spot where the game will not notice the drift, right? So I would recommend copying these settings. Have it at linear and linear, having this to 3% and then 15% for your maximum dead zone. So make sure, use these settings here. This is going to change your life. Now for triggers, you don't really need to change this. There's a way that you can actually, in the back of the controller, you can flick a little button where you basically just have to half press this button in order for you to actually activate your shooting. But for me, I like to feel the actual full length of this. This is a personal preference, but you can always change it to where you basically don't, need to actually press the whole thing down for it to recognize as a firing button. Vibration, this is what I was talking about earlier. I can really reduce the amount of vibration in my controller to 50% so I don't feel it as much anymore. Actually, the SCUF controller isn't that strong in vibration anyway, so even 100 isn't that strong to like a PS4 controller that I used to use. But 50% is like the sweet spot for me where I barely start to feel the vibration. And that's like I said, that's a personal preference. And this is like the sweet spot where I can still feel like the immersiveness of the game, but it doesn't affect my aim as much. And yeah, that's gonna... that's the main things for the SCUF Envision Pro V2. The link will be in the description. Please go ahead and buy one of these, and it's gonna change your life completely if you play on PC and Xbox. Now, the SCUF can be very expensive. I understand that. So for most people, it might not be worth it to actually buy a controller that's that expensive, right? The law of diminishing returns may exist. So in that regard, I recommend using this controller. It's a little bit more affordable. It's half the cost of the SCUF, if not more. And this goes on sale a lot, in your closest retail store. So check this one out. It's called the GameSir G7 Pro. This works for PC and Xbox. Like, it's not going to have all the bottom buttons here, but it has pretty much everything else. Like here, you can change the vibration level. So it's not like 50%, 30%, like the SCUF is, but you can change it to 1, like as minimum as possible. I noticed even at 1, it's still very strong. So for this one, it might just be better off to keep this as 0. If this is too strong, it feels like this is like still really strong at 1. It's insane. So triggers, I like to keep this. I don't really like to mess with this, like I said. In motion, nothing much there. On sticks, okay, this is the one. I like to keep the dead zone, same thing, 3. I noticed having this at 3 versus 2 or 1 or 0, there's drift here. 0, 1, 2, drift, 3, no drift. That's the bare minimum that you want to have. Now for curve adjustment, this is exactly what we talked about earlier. This is linear aim right here. See that? You move a little bit, you move a little bit, and it moves. Just exactly a flat line, exactly what you need. Flat line, guys. That was a joke. And then now you have a different response curve where it slows down, in the beginning, and then it ramps up towards the end. Same here. It ramps up towards the beginning, slows down towards the end. So these do not really help with your aim, because now you have to try to counteract this curve, right? Naturally. Here, it's completely flat, exactly what you want it to be. So that's the sticks. And for the buttons, this is very important. I want to make sure you guys, have these binds set. On the bottom left, for L4, I bound this to A. Same thing. It's going to be your jump. And then on the bottom R4, it's going to be bounded to your B, which is going to be your crouch. So you'll never have to let go of your sticks if you're playing on this controller. On my actual, there's buttons here on the top as well, which is really cool. I bounded those to the arrows. It's the same thing as a SCUF, where I bounded L5 to the bottom button. This will allow you to, this button here, if you have it set to default on Apex still, this was going to choose your upgrades for you every time you get perk upgrades. And then in here on the right, the R5, the top arrow, see this is going to be your heal wheel. So you can pop, you can pop a battery or do stuff without having to let go of your actual stick, because you never you press this. So you can keep running and healing at the same time. All right, so that's really, really powerful. Those binds are those are the binds that I recommend, for you to have. I kept everything here to default though. I didn't change anything except the paddles itself. So like I said, it's very, very identical to the SCUF. You just don't have the bottom buttons here for like recording clips or muting your mic. Actually, you could there's a bottom button here where you can actually change. Yeah, you can mute it. You see that? There's a mic button here. So yeah, it's almost just as good. So I would recommend going with this controller. The link should be in this video, as well as the bottom of the description as well. So go ahead and check those out. Now, for those of you who play PlayStation, you're like, wait, where's my controller recommendations? Well, I have two for you. The very first controller I would recommend is from Sony themselves. It's the DualSense Edge. Now, that controller is great because it doesn't get stick drift, and you can just change the actual, you could actually change the sticks themselves, so if they start to get drift. So it's really cool, right? So I would recommend that. It has two paddles in the back, but it doesn't have any of these advanced paddles here, like the Gamester or the actual SCUF itself. But the DualSense Edge controller is great because it's from the actual creators of the PlayStation themselves, so you really can't go wrong. You have good warranty there. The next one I would recommend is the Victrix Pro BFG wireless controller. This is a really powerful one, and this one has a lot more binds and it's more customizable versus the DualSense. So I would recommend going with this if you need a little bit more customizability, like the Gamester or the SCUF. So these two controllers is what I would recommend for the PlayStation 5. I don't have the binds for those, but you can mimic what I have for the Gamester and the SCUF. And then you can go ahead and, like the dead zone, everything is still pretty much the same. Now for video, I like to keep display mode to full screen. It just makes everything a lot easier to see. I like to keep mine at 16:9. Resolution, I like to play at 2K. Like I said, it depends on the system that you play in. If you're more comfortable playing, your system can't run that strong, go ahead and play at 1080. It's still great. Brightness, I like to keep that at 55%. Field of view, 110. This is very, very important, right? I'm going to keep mine at 70 and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Look how zoomed in I am. I don't know if we start off at 70 or 90. It's really bad. You can't see anything around you. And some players actually run around like this. So you're not going to be aware of your surroundings at all, right? If you have it at 110 at max, look, I could see everything around me. Even if I ADS, you're not going to be able to see as zoomed in, but you lose that, you lose that aspect. You have way more awareness, which is way more important in my opinion when you play this game, right? You want to be able to react or see things in your peripherals versus not being able to see anything at all. All right, so make sure you set this, field of view to at least 100. You don't have to go crazy like 110, but 110 is, if you really want to see everything. So yeah, 100, it's not too bad. It's still zoomed in. It's still a little bit zoomed in for me. But if you want like a middle ground, 100 is great. But 110, you won't go wrong there. FOV ability scaling, I'd like to keep that on disabled. This just basically means like if you play characters like Octane, for example, right, and you stim, it doesn't change my actual FOV. It doesn't zoom it out. Actually, let me see the new one. Yeah, see they fixed that. The new stim as well, like the God stim, it doesn't change your FOV. So it just makes things a lot easier because you don't get like a weird, like a time warp loophole thing going on, or like a wormhole thing going on. So it just makes your screen a lot clearer. On that note, sprint view shake as well, set that to minimal, right? If you have this normal, then your view while sprinting is gonna shake. Obviously you don't want that. You want to keep things as steady as possible. Keep that on minimal. UI layout mode, I like to keep that to auto. And then VSync, these are all advanced settings, but I want to show you guys, if you are on PC, is very, very important. Disabled, NVIDIA Reflex enabled, adaptive resolution FPS target, I like to keep that at 60, so that way it's not too much for my PC to handle that. So keeping that at 60 is just like in the sweet spot for everything. Texture streamer budget, I like to keep that on ultra. Anisotropic 16x, ambient occlusion quality on high, and then everything else here is high, very high. All the specific small details, I like to keep that on high. My PC can handle all this. The reason why I do keep that on high is because I like to keep, like, seeing the cinematics of things is so nice. It's so nice to be able to see all the small things. It's for recording purposes as well. So if you are trying to make content, keeping this on high, it just makes things just a lot nicer to look at, just things a lot brighter and makes things more vivid. So an audio settings, this is very, very important, guys. They actually added a lot new audio settings. So this is something I'm really excited to talk about. Master volume, obviously keep that 100%. Output device, it's whatever you're using. Audio mix, okay? Original was the old one, right? where basically you can't hear anything if someone's walking up on you. Focused is the new one, right? They introduced in season 27 a ton of new stuff in there. I have a video of exactly what they introduced. There's 5 new things that they added. Output configuration, you want to keep this on default. Or on stereo, right? You don't want to you want to hear footsteps around you. You do not want to keep this on mono. Stereo allows you to hear surround sound, where the enemy footsteps are, awareness. So this is very, very important to keep this at stereo. If someone's sticking up on you, keep that on stereo. Now, advanced audio options. You guys ready for this? This is a new page that they added this season, and this is very important, okay? And a lot of people have been requesting this, and I'm so glad that they finally, to see this in the game. Sound effects volume, I like to keep that at 50%. Dialogue volume, I like to keep that at 50%. Music volume, completely turn that down. You don't need to hear music, and that's a personal preference for me, but it just makes things just, it's a lot cleaner when I'm in the lobby as well. Lobby music volume, 0%. You don't really need to worry about this. This can kind of affect your game sometimes. Gameplay volume while spectating, okay? 50%, right? It just matches everything else up here. This is, okay guys, ready for this? Legend dialogue. Critical only. This is automatically set to all, because this tells you pretty much everything, just random stuff like little banters that legends will say to each other, or just like little things, like just like legend things that they will tell. The legend will tell you, if they need to upgrade a perk or stuff like that. It'll remind you stuff to do. However, sometimes it's really not important. Like if you're playing Valkyrie and she goes wings up, or stuff like that. Sometimes that's unnecessary information, because you need the audio in the game to be as clear as possible to hear the enemies. So I like to keep that on critical only, because it's literally just everything that you need to know to win the fight. So I like that they introduced this, because there's a lot of random stuff you don't need to hear. So, right? If you don't want to hear anything at all, keep that to none. Keep this at none. But I still like to be reminded of stuff. So critical only. Ping dialogue, same thing. Critical only. I don't need to hear, if there's like a random laser sight, right? I need to know if someone is pushing or someone's getting rezzed. That's a critical only type of dialogue that I need to know. So this is very important, okay? So make sure you have this in critical only. Obviously turning this to none might not benefit you anymore. Now you're not hearing anything. Announcer dialogue, this is like ring 3 closing, round 2 closing, or kill leader eliminated, or something like that. So that one's completely unnecessary to me, for sure. So I keep that to none, right? You can keep that to critical only, but I feel like you'll see everything on your screen pop up if round 2, round 3 is closing. If kill leader got eliminated, you'll actually see on your screen. So this one doesn't matter to keep this to critical only. I like to just, that's actually nice. You can keep the announcer to none, so you don't hear random stuff in your screen as well. Emote preview sound, I like to keep that on. And sound in the background, this means it allows games to play even if this is not the active application. If you close your screen, or you move to another screen, you could still hear Apex in the background. That's actually a nice little quality of life change that they added. And then for the voice chat input device, I like to keep that on system default, record mode, push to talk, and then open mic threshold just a little bit over this line, specifically on the mic that you use. But you don't want to be all the way up here, so that it doesn't pick up. It's like a little noise gate, just to know how much you need to talk for the mic to recognize that you're actually talking, so the enemies your friend at least can hear you. And then incoming voice chat volume, I like to keep that right around the 100 to 125%. Sometimes teammates will talk a little bit quieter, so I like to keep that a little bit higher. But if you have someone yelling, for example, you keep it a little bit lower, or just mute them, right? That's why there's a mute feature in this game. But those were just the controller settings for Season 28. In fact, this season's going to have way more stuff, so before you go, click on one of these videos so you can find more ways to improve, and just find ways to shred this season. No pun intended. Okay, let's hear a few shred now. Let's see. Oh, guys, that was it. Yeah, that was it. that was sick. But you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, and I hope you never forget to take care.